For many motorists who grew up in post-war Britain, a car was never just a mechanical tool to get from point A to point B. It was a faithful companion, a silent witness to family holidays, first dates, and career milestones. In the 1970s and 80s, as modern automotive technology rapidly advanced with plastics and electronics, thousands of owners made the logical decision to sell their older, simpler British vehicles to upgrade to something newer. However, logic often makes a terrible partner to the human heart. Years later, looking back at the sterile, soulless nature of modern motoring, many drivers realized they had made a heartbreaking mistake. They had let go of true masterpieces. Today on UKTorque, we are looking at 10 classic British cars that owners bitterly and deeply regretted selling. These are the ones that got away. Vehicles that left a permanent gap in the driveways and hearts of those who owned them. Number 10. Morris Minor 1000, 1956, the faithful companion. We begin our journey down memory lane with a car that was once woven into the very fabric of British suburban life. The 1956 Morris Minor 1000. This was a vehicle designed with ultimate simplicity and honesty in mind, featuring the legendary, highly economical 948 cubic centimeters A-Series engine and a beautifully distinctive split-screen or curved rear window design that gave it a warm, instantly recognizable personality. It was the default choice for young families, district nurses, and first-time drivers across the nation. However, owning a Minor 1000 in the damp British climate required constant vigilance. The chassis legs, floorboards, and underfloor structural sections were highly susceptible to corrosion and rust. To pass the mandatory annual safety tests, owners frequently found themselves spending weekends with a welding torch, patching up the metalwork. Frustrated by the ongoing maintenance, many owners eventually sold their Minors for a few pounds to buy modern hatchbacks. But the moment the garage door closed, a cold wave of remorse set in. They quickly realized they had traded a completely faithful, charming family companion that could be fixed with a basic spanner for a modern car that lacked any real character, leaving a lingering sense of loss that time could never quite erase. Number 9. MGB Roadster, 1962, the spirit of summer. Introduced in 1962, the MGB Roadster was the definitive British sports car of its generation. With its beautifully balanced, pure, two-seater proportions, affordable spare parts, and a timeless open-top design, it offered the average working man a genuine taste of grand touring freedom. It was a car built for sunny Sunday afternoons, winding country lanes, and the pure joy of mechanical driving. But the MGB was not without its classic British quirks. The dual SU carburetors were notoriously temperamental and required a skilled hand to keep perfectly synchronized. If they fell out of tune, the engine would suffer from a rough, uneven idle or frustrating flat spots during acceleration. As families grew or winter weather set in, many owners reluctantly sold their Roadsters for sensible, enclosed saloons. Yet, the moment the clouds cleared and the summer months arrived, those same drivers bitterly regretted their decision. They desperately missed that raw, wind-in-the-hair mechanical connection, the raspy exhaust note, and the pure automotive freedom that modern, insulated vehicles could never truly replicate. Number 8. Austin-Healey Sprite Frogeye, 1958, the joyful mascot. The 1958 Austin-Healey Sprite, affectionately known across the world as the Frogeye, was one of the most cheerful sports cars ever conceived. To save production costs, the engineers mounted the headlights prominently on top of the bonnet, which combined with a wide radiator grille, gave the car a smiling, highly distinctive face. It was incredibly lightweight, nimble, and brought a sense of pure fun to the British motoring scene. However, that unique design came with a major practical sacrifice. The Sprite possessed no external boot lid. If you wanted to load luggage, tools, or a spare wheel, you had to awkwardly cram everything from inside the cabin, reaching behind the two front seats into a dark, narrow space. Tired of the tight space and the minimal weather protection, many enthusiasts eventually parted with their Sprites as the years moved on. Today, however, many elderly motorists look back with a profound pang of sadness. They don't remember the awkward boot, They remember the pure joy the car brought, and how its smiling face used to lift the spirits of the entire neighborhood every time it drove down the street. Number 7. Triumph Herald, 1959, the mechanic's dream. Launched in 1959, the Triumph Herald broke away from conventional monocoque design by utilizing a separate chassis construction. Its most famous feature was a magnificent front bonnet and wing assembly that swung entirely forward as a single unit, offering unparalleled, completely open access to the entire engine and front suspension. It was a car that encouraged owners to maintain it themselves with immense pride. Yet, the Herald possessed a handling trait that demanded careful respect. The rear swing axle suspension design could track awkwardly under sudden, heavy cornering. If a driver pushed the car too hard into a sharp bend, the rear wheels could tuck inward dangerously, causing sudden oversteer. When modern front-wheel drive hatchbacks arrived with safer road holding, many families chose to sell their aging Heralds. But the regret followed shortly after. Former owners quickly realized that modern cars were impossible to park in tight spots, missing the Herald's unmatched, incredibly tight turning circle that made daily urban maneuvers an absolute breeze. Number 6. Ford Cortina Mark II, 1966, the family album. In 1966, Ford launched the Cortina Mark II, a car that quickly became the definitive backbone of suburban British driveways. It offered executive-style comfort for the working class, featuring a massive, cavernous boot, crisp, sharp-edged styling, and the highly reliable cross-flow engine. It was the proud vessel for the annual family holiday to the coast, packed with suitcases, buckets, and spades. But the Cortina had a vulnerability to the elements. The original front wing panels, inner arches, and lower sills lacked adequate factory rust-proofing or sealing. Within just a few wet winters, rust would begin to bubble up around the iconic circular headlamps and chrome trim. To avoid costly body repairs, many families made the practical decision to trade their Cortinas in for newer models. For many, however, selling that car felt like closing the chapter on their proudest family memories. Decades later, looking back at old family photographs, numerous owners express a deep, lingering sense of remorse for letting go of the very car that defined their happiest years. Number 5. Rover P6 2000, 1963, the Executive Sanctuary. The Rover P6 2000, introduced in 1963, was a masterpiece of advanced engineering that completely disrupted the conservative executive market. It was highly sophisticated for its time, featuring a revolutionary to Dion rear suspension layout, a base unit structure with bolt-on panels, and standard four-wheel disc brakes that offered immense stopping power and an incredibly smooth, balanced ride quality. However, that advanced engineering came with a heavy maintenance penalty for everyday owners. The complex rear disc brakes were mounted inboard, tucked away next to the differential rather than out of the wheels. This meant that standard brake pad replacements and basic caliper maintenance were an absolute nightmare, requiring hours of labor and specialized knowledge. As repair bills grew at local garages, many professionals chose to sell their P6s for simpler, modern company cars. But the regret was almost instantaneous. Drivers quickly realized that the stiff, clinical ride of modern saloons couldn't compare to the supreme, floating sanctuary of the Rover P6, leaving them wishing they had simply paid the maintenance costs to keep that engineering triumph. Number 4. Jaguar Mark II, 1959, the prestige masterpiece. The 1959 Jaguar Mark II was the ultimate expression of British grace, space, and pace. It was a luxury executive express that commanded absolute reverence, boasting a gorgeous cabin lined with polished burr walnut wood and thick leather, combined with the powerful, racing-bred XK straight-six engine. It was the vehicle of choice for high-ranking business leaders, celebrities, and even the era's most notorious bank robbers who needed a fast getaway car. But owning a masterpiece required a level of dedication and expense that many owners eventually found difficult to sustain. The rear leaf springs and complex leather interiors required constant preservation care, And if the XK engine was left sitting idle for too long, it could develop incredibly costly oil leaks from the rear main seals. Selling a Mark II was almost always a decision forced by rising upkeep costs or changing family dynamics. Yet, almost every single enthusiast who watched their Mark II drive away with a new owner looked back with a heavy heart, knowing they had just parted with a true, irreplaceable icon of British prestige and cinematic beauty. Number 3. Hillman Imp, 1963, the Pocket Rocket. Launched in 1963 to compete directly with the roaring success of the Mini, the Hillman Imp was an incredibly innovative compact car. Built in Scotland, it featured a revolutionary, lightweight rear-engine layout powered by an aluminum overhead cam engine derived from a fire pump design, along with a highly practical opening rear window glass that turned the back seat into an accessible luggage bay. But the early Imps suffered from being rushed into production before the engineering quirks were fully sorted. The early pneumatic throttle systems were exceptionally vulnerable. Even a slight drop in the coolant level could lead to sudden overheating and a warped aluminum head gasket. Discouraged by these early reliability issues, many owners sold their Imps for more conventional vehicles. Over time, however, that frustration turned into profound selling regret. Owners deeply missed the incredibly sharp, fun handling, and a unique rear-engine weight distribution that made the compact Imp feel like a responsive, pocket-sized racing car on their favorite roads. Number 2. Wolseley Hornet, 1961, the boutique jewel. Introduced in 1961, the Wolseley Hornet was a highly distinctive, premium variation of the classic Isagones Mini. Designed for buyers who wanted the compact packaging of a city car, but refused to sacrifice traditional luxury, the Hornet featured an elongated, traditional notchback boot and a proud, upright Wolseley front grille with a badge that beautifully illuminated at night. However, that extra luxury altered the car's core dynamics. The added weight of the extended boot and premium interior trim slightly softened the raw, aggressive go-kart handling balance that the standard Mini base was famous for. Seeking a sharper driving experience or a larger family transport, many owners parted with their Hornets during the 70s and 80s. Today, that decision is remembered with deep loss. Owners have come to realize that they let go of an incredibly rare, bespoke, and beautifully crafted boutique jewel of British luxury, a car whose unique charm is almost entirely impossible to find in the modern world. Number 1. Austin Mini Cooper S, 1963, the ultimate heartbreak. We arrive at our number 1 spot, representing what is arguably the single most regretted automotive sale in the entire history of British motoring. The 1963 Austin Mini Cooper S. This was the definitive giant killer of the motoring world, a tiny, unassuming family car equipped with twin carburetors, front disc brakes, and a fierce rally-winning pedigree that allowed it to routinely embarrass expensive sports cars on both racetracks and mountain passes. But using a Cooper S as a daily driver in the 1970s or 80s was an exhausting endeavor. The interior cabin insulation was practically non-existent, and the stiff rubber cone suspension meant that long-distance motorway cruising was an incredibly loud, bumpy, and tiring experience. Thinking practically about comfort and modernization, thousands of owners sold their original Cooper S models for a few £100s to buy quiet, insulated modern hatchbacks. It is a decision that almost every single one of them looks back on today with utter, genuine heartbreak. They realized too late that they had let go of a timeless icon, a piece of cultural history, and a level of pure, unadulterated driving magic that the modern automotive world will never be able to replicate. The moving history of these 10 classic legends serves as a beautiful, nostalgic reminder that the true value of a motor car cannot be measured in modern electronics or plastic efficiency, but in the permanent memories and feelings they leave behind. Subscribe to UKTorque for more honest, nostalgic chapters from our rich automotive past. And let us know in the comments below, did you or your family ever make the heartbreaking mistake of selling one of these classic British legends?